Hey everyone, welcome to That Bitch Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Bianca, and I'm so excited to have you here with me today. This is a space where we tap into our confident, grounded selves and truly embodying that fierce, unapologetic energy. Hence the name of my podcast. Each episode will explore different ways to find strength, clarity, and self-love so we can step into our power together. I'm on this journey with you, learning, growing, and sharing insights every step of the way. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode on That Bitch Energy.
Seen a bitch like me, I'ma come up on ya, ain't nobody want.
Hello, my beautiful babies. I am so excited to be making this episode today. I feel so happy and so worthy to the point where I feel like I can actually speak from my heart and speak from my story and my experience. And that's what this whole episode is going to be about today. Today is about how we are all born worthy. And these flowers are for my friends, Christina and Jasmine, and honestly, they made me feel so loved. Now, I know you've probably heard you're worthy before and know your worth before, but I'm not just saying we're all born worthy to be cute or just motivational. This is fact. The odds of you being here right now are 1 in 400 trillion. Yeah, you heard me right. The fact that you exist is nothing short of a miracle. So let's dive into what that really means today and why your worth isn't something for you to prove. It's just something you were born with. So let's break down those odds. Think about every single thing that had to align and come together for you to be here, existing, watching this episode right now, or listening to this episode right now. Your parents had to meet each other at the right exact moment. Then they had to get together, you know what I mean? But also, their parents had to meet to create them. So those chances are even more slimming once you go back and back. This goes back for centuries, and every single moment has led to you being here today. The fact that the right egg and the right sperm had to come together, forming the exact combination of DNA that makes you you. And all of that happened just for you to be here today. I mean, how wild is that? I can't believe that it took all the perfect stars aligning for me to be here right now. Out of all of the possible outcomes, you and me are the ones that came into this world. That alone tells me you were meant to be here. I am meant to be here. So if you ever felt like you're not enough or that you don't belong, I want you to really think about those numbers. You're not just a random occurrence. This is not an accident. You're here for a reason, and that reason is deeply rooted in your inherent worth. So I don't believe that worth is given or earned. Worth isn't something that you achieve. It's not a badge that you get for working hard enough, being successful enough, or being liked by enough people. It's something you were just born with. When you came into this world as a tiny little human, you were full of worth before you could walk, talk, or do anything. Somewhere along the way, society tends to take a toll and mold how we think of how worthy we are. Society might start to tell us that we need to do this to prove ourselves. We need to do that to prove ourselves. We need to be a doctor to be successful. We need to be this to be successful. We need to have this much money to be successful. We need to have this car. We need to have this stuff. There's this big pressure to be enough. But guess what? You already are enough. You don't need to be any version of yourself other than who you are. You don't have to change to be worthy. Your worth is in your existence. So now that we realize how fucking incredible it is that we are even here. The chances were slim to none, 0 to 400 trillion to be exact. We gotta know we're worthy. We are worthy. And now that we know we're worthy, what are we gonna do with that? What are we going to live out with knowing we are worthy? So how do we live like it? This is where the real work comes in. Because sometimes it's really hard to feel worthy when life's not going our way. Because we want our life to be a certain way. We want our life to be right. But here's a really good practice that is extremely powerful. Every morning while you're getting out of bed, think of how lucky and how the chances are so slim for you to have been here right now, existing in this time as you, and how you are a miracle and you are born worthy. And let that be a foundation of your day. That by itself can change the outcome of anyone's day. And really believing it. I want to dive into self-love here because I feel like feeling worthy is a self-love act. Finding your worth and remembering I shouldn't say finding because it's already there. Remembering your worth is a self-love act. An act of self-love. So I realize that as a society, it's very normal for us to take on the pain of others. Do you ever have a conversation with someone that's hurting and you then tend to try and feel their pain by giving them your story or giving them your pain and in hopes that that's going to lessen their pain and suffering? When you might notice that the other person, while you're sharing your pain, when they're trying to give you and express to you their own pain, they then feel like they're not actually being seen or heard because now you're relating it to yourself. I've been in this situation. Have you ever felt guilty for having a good day because maybe someone close to you wasn't going through a good time or wasn't having a good time, or they were going through something hard? Or maybe you've held yourself back from enjoying yourself because you knew others weren't as fortunate. That's you unconsciously taking on the pain of others. I read a book recently called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, and I was extremely inspired by his book. Mark Wolin explains in his book, sometimes we carry emotional trauma that doesn't even belong to us. It could be family trauma passed down through generations, or it could be the pain of someone you deeply care about. Either way, we often feel like we need to suffer alongside others to show solidarity or empathy. But here's the thing, your suffering doesn't actually take away the suffering from anyone else. You suffering does not take away anyone else's pain. You hurting isn't going to heal them. All it does is add more suffering into the world, because when you take on pain that isn't yours, that is you taking away from your own self-love. Why? You take someone else's pain. Someone's going through something, then you take on the pain, and then you show up to your next event with pain, and then that rubs off onto another person, and it's a ripple effect onto each person, and it keeps going until someone breaks that cycle and decides to say, I don't take on your pain. I'm here for you. I hear you. I see you. But I'm still present in this moment, and I don't have to take your pain to take your pain and suffering away. Just being there for that person is enough. And don't get me wrong, empathy is beautiful. Feeling with someone and being compassionate toward their struggle is powerful. But there's a big difference between empathy and carrying someone's pain as if it were your own. One honors their experience while keeping your own energy intact, and the other drags you down into suffering that doesn't belong to you. So what can we do when we notice that we keep holding on to other people's suffering? We can learn to let go. And the key to letting go is recognizing that the suffering is not yours. Because sometimes we feel so obligated to suffer alongside others because we don't want to seem like we're ignoring their pain. But let me tell you this. You are allowed to feel joy even when others are struggling. You are allowed to live your life fully, even when others aren't able to. Mark Wallen talks about how these emotional patterns can sometimes be inherited. We may take on our parents' or grandparents' unresolved pain, believing we need to carry it forward for some reason. But once we recognize that this suffering isn't ours, we can begin to release it. You don't need to hold onto pain that doesn't belong to you. In fact, by letting go, you become a source of strength, which allows you to help others in a much more impactful way. The same way that the suffering can rub off onto you, the joy, the peace, the being present can rub off onto others. When you know your worth, that you were born worthy, and that joy is not something you need to suppress, you give others permission to do the same. Think about it. If you walk around with guilt for having a good life, or if you constantly try to shrink your happiness to match somebody else's pain, you're not lifting anyone up. But if you embody your worth, live your life fully, and show that it is possible to feel joy even through tough times, you become an example of what's possible for others. You can support someone through their struggles while still honoring your own life. You can be the light in someone's dark moment, and that's so much more powerful than joining them in their darkness. So let's think about how we can do this in practice. First, it's about becoming aware of those moments when you feel guilt or shame for experiencing joy and success. Ask yourself, is this pain really my pain? Am I supposed to feel their pain in my body? Am I carrying this pain for someone else? When you start to notice this pattern, you can gently remind yourself that your suffering doesn't heal others. Only love, compassion, and showing up in your truth can do that, because you are now their permission slip to also lead life with joy and compassion. Second, focus on your own healing and joy. When you live in alignment with your worth, you show others that they can do the same. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So fill yourself up first. Take care of your own emotional and mental health so that you can be a source of strength for others, but from a place of wholeness, not depletion. So I want you to release your guilt and your shame or burden that you've been carrying that just isn't yours. You were born worthy, and your suffering does not heal others. What heals is your light, your love, and your ability to live in alignment fully in your truth. Even if others are struggling, you can practice your joy, and you can also still have compassion and empathy at the same time. Thank you for listening. I can't wait to see you in the next one.
Like me, I'ma come upon ya.